It is crazy, but divorce rates skyrocket during our midlife. So why on earth do so many marriages fall apart, and how can we actually start to protect our love from becoming another heartbreaking statistic?
Yeah. I didn't realize the correlation between those two things early on. I was like, okay, you're here, you're in your 40s, maybe life is changing, but there's a lot changing all at the same time. You might be at the height of your career, if a place that you've looked at forever. Your kids, it might be empty nest. You know, your parents are aging and you've been in a relationship for a very, very long time. But on top of all that stuff is the thing we never talked about, which was health changes, how your body changes, how maybe you don't recognize yourself anymore. So we're seeing those numbers rise a lot, initiated by women. And in some cases, it's because women have decided, hey, I want something different and I know who I am. I definitely am different than I was when I was 20 years old. In other cases, it's because women are not sure exactly what's going on and they're feeling a lack of confidence in different areas, and it might be attributed to a relationship.
This is one of those moments where honestly my heart bleeds. If you've been looking your whole life and you've been serving other people, and maybe you found someone that you love more than life itself, and you've dedicated your life to them and the family, and then you get to a point and now you don't recognize yourself anymore, it feels like your entire life will unravel in that moment. So is it that we have changed and therefore the partner we are with no longer aligns with who we have become? Or is it we have been putting ourselves last every single step of the way, and then we finally put ourselves first and realize this isn't the life I want?
I think it's both. I mean, you're in a relationship, you've been in it for a long time, and maybe things have changed. Hopefully your values are aligned and you know what those are, and those have stayed the same. But if who you are has changed and you've gone down these paths through the course of 10, 20, 30 years, if it's that you're now putting yourself first and that doesn't align with somebody, then that's got to be addressed too. And as you evolve into these other places, if the person you're with is not expecting that or is not on board with that, that can be a real problem. What I love to see and what I love to talk about is the couples that work together in those areas. And so they're growing together in whatever that is. I was divorced at a young age and then remarried at the age of 50. So I don't have that span in there, you know, so we've kind of got this new relationship, right? But a lot of my friends have a relationship they've been in for a very long time and have had to find new ways to grow in that relationship as new people. So they come together in a different way.
That's so interesting, as new people. So it's kind of like you have to reestablish who you're with.
Yes.
Or who you are, and then who you're with.
Who you are in that relationship, right? When we do change. If you were taking care of children and doing all these different, putting everybody else first, let's call it that. Now all of a sudden you're coming first. You're a little bit different probably to that partner, and that makes sense. I've talked about it before, and I said, is it your husband or is it your hormones? Because I think that, you know, there's a lot of things all happening at the same time. And when you decide finally, which I hope women do even earlier than 50 and 60 years old, but starting to put themselves first, I think that you're able to take care of yourself, and then you can still take care of anybody else that you need to.
So how, I love that, is it your husband or your hormones? How do you know which one it is then?
Oh, I know. Well, I think you have to pay attention to what's going on with your body, right? When we know that health has to come first at some point. And I think in your 20s and your 30s and maybe in your 40s, it hasn't. It has, you know, where everyone else's appointments are, how everyone else is doing, how you can help anybody else, and you kind of come last wherever you fit in. And it can't be a luxury. I've realized it can't be a luxury. And it can't come behind work. It can't come behind a partner. It can't come behind anybody else.
Yeah. So as I'm going through perimenopause right now, I'm 45, I have evolved. And I realized I've been with my husband for almost 25 years.
Yeah.
And it dawns on me that when we women have children, when we get pregnant, these days, it's very natural for the man to read up on the baby books. It's very natural for the man to go and run to the grocery store and get you ice cream at 3 in the morning, not look at you like you're weird, not look at you like you're insane. They just accept, oh, it's your hormones, you're pregnant, it's cute. I'm going to help support you. And we don't do that in relationships when it comes to menopause. And if you're a guy and you're with a woman and you plan to be together for the rest of your life, the woman going in menopause isn't just happening to her, it's happening to the both of you, just like having a child.
100%.
So then I go, okay, how do we start to communicate with men? And in fact, I've got a quote of yours that I'd love to read. Stop expecting men to get it. They won't. They're going to say the wrong thing, act confused, and piss you off. Not because they don't care, but because they don't know.
It's true. It's true. They don't know. We didn't know. I didn't know. I didn't even. When's the first time you heard the word perimenopause?
Oh, a couple of years ago.
Me
maybe?
too. How's that that possible? I was in it and I had never heard the word. You know, it was going on. So to expect a man to understand that, we just can't. You can't expect a man to understand that unless you're explaining what you're going through. And it's not an easy conversation. Some people might be dating during this time. Some people might be married for a long time. Some people just might not be comfortable with the conversation. I mean, we as women have just started to normalize it. And I think men want to know, they just don't know what they don't know, is really the truth. They don't know that sex can be painful. They don't understand that when your hormones shift, low libido is pretty much expected. They don't know that all of a sudden, you know, you don't feel the same in your body because hormones have fluctuated so much that when you look in the mirror, you're like, oh, and you don't feel as confident. So I think that there's going to be a big learning curve for men, and I'm excited to see a lot of them asking more questions these days.
Yeah, the method I'm using is let me open my arms and invite my husband into my world.
Wonderful.
And then the second part is I had to articulate it to your point. Is like, if I didn't know, I have to learn it and then I have to tell him. But then the last part was I just said, baby, I need your help. I could do this alone. I don't want to do this alone. So going to your point of we don't know who we are, so how is our partner? And then the sex part is so important because let's just be honest, right? Intimacy is extremely important for a relationship. And so if you are unable to do it, if you don't know what's happening with your body and your partner is being left out and they don't know what's happening, they're going to probably think it's about them.
100%. I mean, you couldn't have said that better. Like, that's what they do think. They do think it's often about them. They don't know what they've done wrong, and we often don't know how to articulate it. And I feel like with these conversations, I'm always like putting the onus on the woman, but it has to be right now until this conversation is more normalized in society. And unfortunately, it has been such a long time that we haven't had it, that finally we're talking about it. And so there's so many incredible gifts that this time brings with it. And so I want them to feel empowered with that kind of inner beauty.
Oh, I love that. Okay, the inner beauty, the empowerment really does then echo in how you show up. Do you feel sexy? Do you want your partner to be touching you? Like, all of those things do make a difference.
They do.
And if you're that person that you don't feel good about yourself and your partner comes up and you wince, it's like, let's face it, that's not a nice, as a message for your partner, like that's not going to feel
Says
nice.
everything.
Yeah, and so you actually have a stat on this, over 50% of menopausal women experience painful sex and reduced libido, which, if unaddressed, can contribute to intimacy issues and marital dissatisfaction.
The frustrating thing about that is you go into a doctor's office, you go into the gynecologist's office, you have your regular appointments. They're not usually asking how your sex life is, right? They're not usually saying, like, how many times are you having sex now? That's not usually the question that you're asked. And so women feel uncomfortable about bringing it up. And with the doctor, doctors often feel uncomfortable about bringing it up because most haven't been trained in menopause. Midlife women's health kind of falls off the runway, right? We go right up to reproductive years and then we're just sort of not there. And that's really how this conversation came about in such a big way for me, because I was like, how can I be 49 and I don't matter anymore at this age? So, you know, the sex conversation is a conversation that I get excited to have because there are solutions. There are non-hormonal solutions, there are hormonal solutions for it. And the fact that you have low libido, which is a big deal and makes you feel not great, you know, you don't want to be rejecting your partner all the time, especially if you're somebody that love sex. And then the painful sex is a real thing. You know, it can feel terrible to have sex if you have a reduced amount of estrogen and you just don't want it. When you're dry all over your body, that's not something you're welcoming.
All right, guys, we'll be right back with Tamsen Fadal. But for now, I just want to ask you, if this episode or any other Women of Impact episode that you have watched has brought value to your life, please do smash that subscribe button below, because you have no idea how much that really does become a calling card to every single woman out there, that this is the place you can come to. This is the place that the community will have your back. This is the place that every woman is welcomed, no matter where you come from, no matter what you're struggling with. So smash that subscribe button. Thanks for listening. Now, back to the episode. Okay, so if someone's listening right now, you have amazing tips on how to have great sex, which I think is very important based on everything that we've just spoken about, of how important that is to relationships. Okay, so number one, if you don't ask for what you want, the answer is always no.
Absolutely. This is communication. This comes down to like not being afraid, knowing your body, knowing what feels good on your body, what brings you pleasure. You've got to be able to have that conversation, not assume that other person knows. Absolutely have to.
Number two, pay attention to your erotic clock.
Yeah, I know. And pay attention to that. Pay attention to when you get excited, when you're turned on, when you want something. It's funny. I didn't even know there was such a thing. Like, I'm like, I don't know. I just guess you have sex when you, I don't know, when you decide to. But I had no idea that things change and hormones change. And especially if you're in the perimenopause part of things, that your hormones are a little bit all over the place. So there's definitely an erotic clock with that.
That never dawned on me that it would change based on your...
Well, I mean, you've got your hormones all over the place. I did do this when I did go on testosterone. I realized, like, where's all of a sudden I'm initiating sex all the time? When I think my husband was just like so, tired of doing it. When I was like, no, don't, no. And now, I'm not shy about it at any point at any time, which I like that.
Now, I actually have a couple of friends, and I was just talking to someone, I won't say her name just in case she doesn't want me to say this out loud, but she was telling me that she went on testosterone, and she's like, Lisa?
I know.
I was at a football game, and she was like, all these footballers were just so sexy to me all of a sudden. Did you have that at all?
I love that. Yeah, especially when initially I was just like, yeah, I'm back.
Nice.
Like that's kind of how I felt. Yeah. Which
I like
is
the
nice.
shoulder thing.
I did. I don't know where that. I don't know what that is. But that's how I felt.
You're amazing. I love you so much. Okay, number 3, exercise before sex.
I know, to get your body moving, get your circulation moving. Isn't that unbelievable?
Yeah.
I would think like I don't want to be hot and sweaty, but I guess it works okay.
I'm tired.
I guess it worked. Well, I know. I never thought about the tired. I was thinking about the hot and sweaty. But yeah, it works. It helps with the circulation. It helps getting your body moving.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, look, most guys aren't even going to care if you're hot and sweaty, so it's fine.
Yeah. So, wait a second, babe. I just need to do some
shower.
push-ups.
Right. Hold on, I'm doing the plank.
Although, you may like the plank.
I like the plank.
Number 4, don't eat right before
Well,
sex.
I mean, that goes without saying.
That's like 101 sex for women.
Right. I mean, that's like sluggy and feeling terrible. But I had to put that in there because it's true.
It is.
Isn't it? Yeah. I mean, that doesn't even need the explanation.
God. No, it doesn't. I don't know why I've got so giggly all of a sudden. Number 5, try putting lube or toys in the fridge.
I know. Because it's not stuff we've talked about. I mean, I brought Ira to his first sex shop ever. Like, he had never been, and we bought all sorts of things, and he's just like, what am I? Who is this girl that I'm with? But I was like, nope. Midlife, we got to change things up a bit. But yeah, put them in the fridge or the freezer.
Why in the fridge though?
Yeah, because, have you ever done it before?
No.
I want you to do it.
You're like,
do you need me to send
Lisa,
anything in the kit?
I've literally got like a whole closet full.
We'll stick one in the fridge.
All right. And I'll let you know how it goes. All right, let's go. I want to know what...
Better sex than ever.
Yes. Okay. Do you have to, yeah.
How and when? How and when?
I know. Mine's already great, girl. So,
okay,
if you're about to dangle that carrot,
you tell me.
I'm excited.
But it really, there's a lot of things you're not worried about anymore. If you've been worried about being pregnant, you don't, and that's not something you want, you're not worrying about that anymore. If you've gotten to know your partner so well that you can communicate, I think in this society in general, I think we're like, oh, we're both just supposed to kind of know what to do. And it's not really a conversation. I mean, my husband and I got married at 50 and he's 10 years older than me, but I have real candid conversations before and during the bedroom, which is really nice, which I didn't have initially. And so I like being able to say that, like, sex is great in these years because I never believed it myself. I thought it can't get better than what I'm already doing at a young age. But it does.
All right, so I'm going to go deeper if you don't mind.
Go.
If I ask anything too personal, let me know. But this is so... This is the gems, girl.
Okay,
this is the gems. Okay, so you said that you got married in your 50s. So you go on your honeymoon. I heard you tell the story.
Yes.
That you go on your honeymoon, and then that's when everything kicked in. And so you said, as a joke, it's kind of like you bait and switched your poor husband.
No.
But now take me through. So now you realize, oh my God, I'm dry. I may not have the libido. What does that conversation look like? And then how did you get to the point where now you guys are having amazing sex? And
Yeah, because it had two things. Hormones was a big part of it. Conversation was a big part of it. And his patience was a big part of it, quite frankly. So I'll back up just a little bit before that. When we were dating, I said, what do you want for Christmas? Like, I didn't know what, I'm the worst gift giver. Like, I never know what to do. It's very stressful for me. We're dating. And he goes, I just want you with a big, naked with a big red bow. So I went over to the gift store and I got a big bow and I put it on me and most uncomfortable thing ever, wrapped it around me like a beauty pageant contestant. And that's where I greeted him when he came home and he was like, this is the best gift ever. A year later, I said, what do you want for? He's like, I want that big red bow again. I was like, are you out of your mind? I'm not doing that. Because I had gone. Like I had no sex drive. And I knew it wasn't him. We were in a new relationship and I'd go over and I'd like kiss him and want to make out with him. But then when it came to sex, I'm like, no, it doesn't feel good. It just didn't feel good anymore. I don't want to have sex and I don't know why. And it's like not even in my head. I just don't feel anything. And I was given vaginal estrogen, which makes not dry anymore and makes me feel like, oh my gosh, okay, so this feels good again. And then I went on testosterone. And it took me a long time to make that decision and decide whether or not I was going to do that, but it really did change my sex drive. And then on top of that, we decided as a couple, like we're going to communicate, we're going to have this a sexy kind of night beforehand. We'd, order drinks and have a sexy date night and really invest our time and thoughts in that because I didn't think I'd have to ever do that. I thought like, oh, it just should all come naturally. It didn't, it just didn't. And now it's great. And now it's fun. And now it's not something that, to your point, when you are having sex, you're not feeling that, you become resentful. Really that's what happens. You're like, oh God, I got to do this to make him happy. So yeah, it's great. I'm 54 now. And so I got past that honeymoon that was in Hawaii and the most beautiful, sexy, fun place, feeding each other fruit and drinking champagne. And I was like, And it really did feel in my mind, like, does he think I bait and switched him? Like, that's not what I wanted to do. But I was on the height of really not being comfortable.
Thank you for sharing that. That's so important. And the part of, obviously we're joking, we're laughing, you're like, yeah, bait and switch. But I'm sure that moment actually was probably disturbing for you.
Awful. It felt awful. It made me, I was like, is it me? Is something wrong? Is something wrong with me? Like I felt guilty. I felt not sexy. I felt like old. That's how I felt. And I'm like, I'm 50. Like this is like, I have a long runway left. But I just didn't have it together. And it took a real knock at my confidence and my feeling sexy.
Yeah, and whether we want to admit it or not, we do care about our appearance.
We do.
Right? It's like, there's a reason why I do my hair. There's a reason why I wear my jewelry, got my makeup on. So I don't want to pretend that that's not real. And I think that...
I love that about you. I think it's really important to say that out loud and not make women feel shameful of wanting to feel good.
Yeah, and I do think that, look, if you only put your validation on how you look, that is very detrimental to your self-esteem long term. Like I very much acknowledge that. But at the same time, I do want to feel good. And I know that a big part of your community and a lot of people in the peri or menopause world really don't feel like themselves anymore. They walk past the mirror and they just feel like someone different because you spent 45 of your years, staring back at yourself and all of a sudden that reflection has changed. Like in the fun house in like those fairgrounds where it's like all of a sudden it's freaking warped and you're like, is this me?
Yeah.
That is how disorienting I think that moment can feel. So talk to me about why do we look in the mirror and feel not like us? Why do our bodies change shape, the weight gain, and what advice do you give that we can actually use in those moments to not make it detrimental to our confidence?
So I think a few things, and I've had many of those days. Estrogen, progesterone, hormones, they're fluctuating. They're just kind of all over the place. They really are during that time of perimenopause, which can be 4 to 7 years. And that's a long run. It can go up to 10 years. So we're talking about real changes in your late 30s, sometimes as early as that, through your 40s, through these pivotal years of, wow, now I know who I am. Now I know what maybe I want in my career. Now I'm in this established relationship. I've got my kids or my kids are growing up. So it's where we should be at our height of confidence. And I think sometimes everything kind of comes together. And then on top of that, you're not sleeping. You're trying to eat well and the same and good and better than ever, but your body changes. It really does. Belly fat comes around here. Like I've had it recently where I'm feeling it a lot and I'm like, oh, it's my hormones. Oh yes, I talk about this all the time. You almost forget that this isn't your 20-year-old you. And that doesn't mean you can't look amazing and feel great, but when your sleep is changing, when you're eating and working out the same way, and you're not having any better results, your confidence goes to crap. When you've got brain fog, you're talking to somebody and not remembering things, you don't feel like yourself. And on top of that, when you talk about a lack of estrogen, your hair gets dry, your skin changes, it just does. So being aware of those things, I think, is first and foremost, because the last thing anybody should feel during this time is isolated. When you feel isolated, that is probably the worst thing that you could feel. If you feel like at least you have some information, then you can work with that information and move forward to feel better.
Yeah, I just heard a study and a stat that loneliness is worse than now smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Yes,
It's worse than
I heard
obesity. It's worse than being an alcoholic, and it's worse than never exercising. Like when I think about what the knock-on effect ends up happening, it's like, okay, you go through this perimenopause, you don't feel like yourself, so you start to isolate a bit because you have some shame around it. As you start to feel the shame, you start to retreat more and more because you're so worried about someone maybe finding out that you're not as perfect as you want people to believe. And then in the retreat, when you hear about the knock-on effects with health and loneliness, now you pile all of that together, and it's, I mean, there's no wonder we're struggling, but
it's a huge struggle. And the other thing is, if you don't know you're going through perimenopause, so now you're playing whack-a-mole with a bunch of symptoms, right? You're dealing with weight gain over here, you're dealing with you can't sleep over here, you're dealing with anxiety over here. When I first went to the doctor, I didn't know I was in perimenopause until I landed on the floor of the news studio one night. I had no idea. I didn't even know the word perimenopause, and I was given antidepressants. And that was how my road started. And I thought, okay, I'm dealing with anxiety, but how come I'm not sleeping? And then how come my body, my weight is shifting? And I actually went back and I looked at the patient portal, and in my patient portal, one time that I had gone to the doctor, like in my 40s, and it said not sleeping, weight gain, sleeping on couch at night. That's what I was doing because I wasn't falling asleep. I had no one said, hey, you're in your 40s. Are your periods different? Are you feeling different? What's going on with you? It could be perimenopause, Tamsen. No one said that. No one's ever said that. They handed me a pill and that was it.
coming up.
I'm in my late 30s. I don't want to hit 40 and not get married. I look at it now and I'm like, what were you thinking?
Every single woman I know loves shopping, and yet we don't like bra shopping. Why? Because it's sometimes impossible to find something that actually fits you. Because let's face it, you buy the bra, you really like it, you go to work, you eat something, you sit down for a long time, and then before you know it, it's too tight and it hurts. And someone like me who actually has a small little bust but a big back, it's so hard to find a bra that fits. But I've discovered Fits Everybody line from Skims. Here you go, this is amazing. And the Fits Everybody collection actually does that. It goes all the way from extra, extra small to 4X. So you can shop right now by clicking the link in the show notes, or you can go to skims.com or go to the Skims stores. Now, after you placed your order, be sure to let them know that we sent you. Select the podcast in the survey and be sure to select our show in the drop-down menu that follows.
How do you have the confidence to actually push back? Because when you don't even know what's happening to yourself, when you're that disoriented, when you don't even start to trust your own gut, like if we've trained our gut and now we start to question it again.
It's the worst.
Yeah, so when you're a doctor and somebody's saying that, actually you talk about in your book, you say it's like the 3 Fs, I think they write down. Can you explain what the 3 Fs are? It's heartbreaking.
The 3 Fs are fat, female, and 50, and that's disgraceful. However, that's what, a lot of doctors in their minds or society in general think, and it is heartbreaking. The problem with it, more so than how disgusting that is, the problem with it is you go into a doctor and you think, this is the person that has known me for 20 years, has seen me through all these different things, and I trust completely. If they're dismissive of you, or they're not talking to you, or putting you in like a dismissive category that it doesn't matter anymore, that's a huge problem, and we do know that part. We do know when we walk out of the doctor's office and we feel like we haven't been seen or heard. It's not always a doctor's fault. They have a short amount of time with us, but that's why I'm trying to make so many women go in there educated, even if it's just the question, could this be perimenopause? If you're 40 years old and you've got 4 of these symptoms, you should be able to walk into the doctor's office and say, I've got this, this, and this. Is that possible? This is what I'm going through. And we don't want to dismiss those other symptoms, obviously. If you've got severe brain fog, you want to make sure that is what it is and not something more serious. If you have heart palpitations, we want to make sure that it's perimenopause and not something more serious when it comes to cardiovascular health. If you're not sleeping, we want to make sure it's that and not some sleep apnea or something. But I think it's important to know just those basics, because every woman, if she's lucky enough, is going to go through this. If she lives long enough, is going to go through this. But you want to go through this and feel good. And I hate to say to a woman like, know your symptoms, go in there with a piece of paper, ask the questions. But right now, until we make sure that medical schools are teaching this, we make sure that doctors are aware of it, we make sure that women aren't being gaslit about it or made to feel like something's just wrong with them because they're in midlife, we've got to arm women with that information.
Why do you feel bad saying that?
Oh, because I feel like women have got so much pressure already with so many things, and now we're like, oh, and by the way, make sure that you take care of your health completely and it's all on you. So I always think that we put all this extra pressure on women, but right now it's for our own good to be able to take care of ourselves, right? So we're not playing whack-a-mole with the symptoms, because that always worries me.
I guess for me, that's really empowering. Like you saying to me, it's all on you, your health.
Okay, like, good. Then I like that.
Because now it's like, great, now I can do something about it. The worst time of my life, when I was turned into the doctors because I had massive gut issues, for them to fix me, that was the worst time.
Because you were relying on them.
Yeah. And when I think about my whole channel, Women of Impact is all about holding your power, like never freaking giving it away. And so God bless doctors. Like, I don't want to just be blaming them. It's like they did the best they could based on the education that they were given at the time. So now I can blame the doctors. Does that serve me? Does that help me get better? Yes or no? No.
Not at all.
If I can say, what is wrong with me? Lisa, what am I suffering with? Not what is Jane next to me suffering with? What am I suffering with? Then I can write it down. Like, I want you to scream it from the rooftops.
Then I'm going to keep doing that.
Yeah, like I really want you to, because now you're giving the power back to women.
Well, I wanted to address that individuality. Every woman's going to be different with this. Like your symptoms, my symptoms, their symptoms, everybody's is going to be different. So you've got to have that information and not be embarrassed or shamed by it, and not feel like, oh gosh, I couldn't get this weight off because I didn't try hard enough. Like that's always what I hear from women. Like, I'm eating the same, I'm working out. Your body, it's okay. Like, you have to give yourself some grace during this time, because everything shifts.
That's why I think the individuality of it is actually more empowering, because I can say, okay, if I'm the one, let's say, putting on weight in the world, society, that is worse, quote unquote, than brain fog.
Right.
So now what you're doing is, let's say you put on the weight, you have the shame about it because no one's talking about it, and everyone's like, well, the doctors need to solve you. Now you just may hide it. But if you say, what are you struggling with? What do you want to deal with? And what can you do? Like, that is just so beautiful. And when we talk about going from relationships to how do you feel good, how do you not be a statistic, and then what are those knock-on effects, or what causes that? We went over the appearance thing, but like the hair loss thing is real.
It's real.
I had the hair loss.
Did you?
Yeah.
It's real, right?
That's why I took out, if anyone's wondering, I took out all of my extensions. I now only do braids quarter instead of all the way. It's all because my hair was falling out.
And that's hormones. That's hormones. Is that what they've told you to? Or?
Yeah. And then, so now I've been someone that's built my confidence for 20 years. Yeah. And yes, I was standing in the shower crying as a clump of hair is in my hand.
I know.
And I want to be able to say that with confidence instead of it degrade me or diminish me.
Instead of hiding it. And I'm glad that you're saying that too, because a lot of women are dealing with that right now. Like hair loss, hair thinning, breaking hair, dry skin. That's where the not recognizing yourself in the mirror comes in. That's appearance. That is all about confidence. All of these things are. Like everything that we've talked about and everything that we think happens during this time. And I guess what I get excited about is I see the gift on the other side of this, of women saying like, wow, I went through that. I'm stronger than ever. But I like that you said it, because it makes other women feel comfortable saying it, and that's what we need.
Yeah, and I like the fact that you're just like, yes, it is appearance, but the confidence is how you feel. It's such a big part of it. And one of the things you talk about, that the word hit me so hard to my core, was we feel irrelevant.
I know.
That word hit me.
I know. You know, I was in the news business for a long time, and I got into the business when I was in my 20s, and I was sitting next to a woman who was about 10 years older than me, and she said, you know, there's going to be a day that they don't want you anymore. It's going to be a young woman sitting next to an older guy. The guys stay around, the girls kind of cycle out. And remember, this is like 90s. And I said, really? And she's like, yeah, there's just going to be that day. And I remember every day I would walk into work, even up until I walked away from my job about a year plus ago, and I'd put my key card in, and I was like, oh, okay, they still want me. I'm still relevant. Like in my head.
Because your key card worked?
Here. Yeah, because my key card worked and I got in the door. Back here in my head, but it always had to do with age as women, you know? And so I think that that's really what this fight always is that women don't ever feel like they're not relevant. And I want to make sure that they feel like they can go through this. This is not an ending in any way. And this is not this finalized place that this is all it's come to. This is an amazing time at life. And so I think the relevance and not feeling invisible and not feeling like the best years are behind us and we're not, you know, as smart or as fast or as quick anymore, like we've got to put that away. And I think the louder our voices get in rewriting this narrative, then we can get to that place.
All right, so going back to that moment then, because that hit me really hard when you just told me that story. You were definitely giving your relevance to other people.
Totally. I was unaware of how to do it any other way. It was, if they still want me, then I'm relevant. And now it's, what do I want and I'm relevant? You know, what am I going to do today? I get out of bed in a different way now. I pop out of bed excited about things. I feel good when I walk into a room. If I were coming to talk to you 5 years ago, I would have been all butterflies, nervous. What do I do? Is everything okay? And this time I was like, I'm so excited to meet Lisa. This is going to be so fun. That's different. That's relevance. That feels good. It feels confident. And I think it's as we grow, we learn that when we learn ourselves.
All right, so imagine, I'm going to paint a picture then. So you're going to work, you've got your key card, and you've got your mindset that you have now.
Yes.
What would you do differently?
Well, with the mindset I have now,
In fact, yeah, give me a before and an after then.
then I would have been like, oh my gosh, I would melt down. I would have probably melted down and been like, this is my whole life. My whole identity is built around this. My whole identity is built around my title and my job, right? Mm-hmm. My whole identity, like if I don't have this, I don't have anything. That would really be that extreme for me then. Today, it would be like, wow, okay, maybe this is not where I'm supposed to be anymore. I could not have said that 4 years ago. I couldn't have said that. I couldn't have even thought like that. I love that question, by the way. I couldn't have even thought like that. I think a lot of things have changed. I think community has changed, knowledge has changed. Going through menopause, going through what I considered were some really darker years has changed. And I don't know anybody wants rejection, right? But I certainly don't look at it as rejection on me anymore, as like, maybe that's your loss and I'm not supposed to be there. And so that's a nice feeling to have.
What did the darker years look like?
Oh, there were years that, I would not want to get out of bed. There were years that I would go into work and just feel like everything was closing in, and I wouldn't talk. I'd get off the set, not talk for the rest of the day. It was hard. It was, I went through a divorce in my early 40s, and I think a lot of that contributed to it. I put my worth and my confidence into a relationship that I thought was going to build me and lift me. I thought, like, this person has confidence, and if I'm with him, then I have that confidence. And I think what I didn't realize at the time is I was paying attention to a timeline versus the relationship, and thinking like, wow, I'm in my late 30s. I don't want to hit 40 and not get married. I look at it now and I'm like, what were you thinking? What were you thinking? And so I got into a relationship with the wrong person, and I was in one that was a toxic relationship. And I wouldn't say it's my fault, but if I had this mindset then, I would never have tolerated what I allowed somebody to do to me. And so I think we learn from things like that. And I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but I certainly would wish that I could help with some words if they saw themselves in a relationship like that.
So it was the belief that the timeline, you had to get married by a certain age,
Yeah.
so you settled and potentially said yes to someone that you knew wasn't right for you?
I know that I was in a state where I was giving somebody else my power. That's what I was doing, and that's the evolution. And I think that even just talking about these things, even talking about age and talking about menopause or perimenopause, I've had people over the years say, like, you're going to hurt your career by talking about that. That is not a sexy conversation. Lisa, when I was talking about this, people were not talking about this 4 years ago.
It's true.
Like, nobody was. They were like, what are you saying? Why are you talking about this out loud? And so I remember it really well, thinking like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I know I have to keep going. Mm-hmm. And the first time I put up one of these videos where I just kind of read off of a screen the symptoms, and the reaction that I got from women that went, oh my gosh, so do I, so am I, me too, I see myself, this is what's going on with me. And I saw that quick community of sharing. I went, oh, I'm not the only one out there, and how are we not talking about this? But my doctors attributed it to stress from the divorce. So when I went and said, I'm not sleeping, I'm not feeling great, I'm not feeling good, my hair was falling out on the floor, there was like hair everywhere, and I was put on Lexapro. That's what happened. I was put on antidepressants. And that was where and those were some hard years. And so I was like, is it the divorce? And that's what I just assumed it was, because wow, I went through something pretty traumatic, a relationship that had abuse attached to it in some different ways. And that's what I assumed. I didn't question that. Why would I?
Yeah, because when I think about if that ends up being a similar cycle for a lot of people, where it's like you get older, you start to realize maybe you married younger, maybe you got into a relationship for wrong quote unquote reasons, and then you start to assess your life and you start to change in these impacts. And you were saying about your career as well, so you're having these moments in your career, you're having these problems with your husband, and then the doctor gives you a pill. It seems normal. Like that seems like, yes, of course. I mean, you're having struggling at work and you're going through a divorce and you've got, abusive relationships,
right?
All makes sense.
On paper.
Yeah. Now, we all know, though, the detriments to taking depression pills if obviously that you don't need them. And so you talk in the book of how to identify the difference between if it's depression or if it's menopause. Because I believe 1 in 5 women suffer from depression during menopause. So you talk about the 3 Ps. You have to look at these 3 moments. So take me through those 3 Ps one by one, just in case someone's listening right now. Because look, again, I am not saying to ignore your doctor.
No.
I'm absolutely saying you need to question everything.
You do have to question everything, and that's Dr. Joseph, that is a mental health specialist and psychiatrist that came up with those. And I think the important part of those is a few things. And Dr. Lisa Mosconi, I don't know if you've heard.
Yes, I interviewed her like 4 or 5 years ago.
I figured you had.
When Alzheimer's wasn't sexy either.
Alzheimer's wasn't sexy
either. That's what I interviewed her
exactly
about.
Right. So she has been, a huge advocate and researcher of really understanding what's going on, because the problem is when you're going through brain fog, there's such a fear of, is it dementia? Is it something else when I'm not remembering my phone number, I'm not remembering your name, I'm not remembering things, or I'm looking at a word, I know it and it won't come out of my mouth. So she talks a lot about that. And so that's the big fear, right? What Dr. Mosconi talks about is the fact that a majority of women over men are the ones that will get Alzheimer's, but all women will go through menopause if they're lucky enough. Not necessarily a small portion of those would be Alzheimer's. And I think that, you have to just kind of look at the difference of it. If you look at your period changes, in perimenopause, your hormones are fluctuating, so you're going to be up and down. I had a month where I went through, had my period, and then I went 3 months with no period at all. I didn't know it was perimenopause, but that's something that's one of the indicators of if you're going through perimenopause versus thinking about, am I dealing with dementia? Am I dealing with Alzheimer's? Past history is going to be obviously if you've had any signs of that, or your family's history, which you need. That's another thing when we talk about going to the doctor that you really need to know is your family's history, when your mother may have gone through menopause, and any past history, obviously, of breast cancer, stroke, heart, all of that. And then physical, or just the physical signs that we've talked about with the symptoms of perimenopause, if that's what you're dealing with, versus something else that's a little more severe.
And when I think about how that then potentially leads to suicide, like when I heard that stat that the highest rate of suicide for women is between 45 and 64, it's like, God, I had no idea.
But it makes sense, though, when you think about all these things. It makes sense. But when you talk about these stats with women, you understand where everything falls into midlife. Elderly parents, whether kids have left home, at the height of your career, menopause, perimenopause, all at the same time, and then fears of the future in ageism and all the things that are wrapped up. These things make sense. Divorce makes sense. All of these life changes, health problems totally make sense.
And then that all happened. And if you feel lost, if you feel alone,
you don't know what's going on.
Yeah, it does make sense that then, unfortunately, women then choose to take in their lives. And could you imagine a world where the more we talk about this, that stat just completely changes?
I know. I'm so hopeful with some of these things. And I know that we need some years to look at things, but I'm so hopeful that some of these statistics go in different directions when it comes to the number of women that have awareness of what they're going through. Like most women don't even know the word, or not even aware of perimenopause, more or less, to be dealing with it. Others, there's so many that have symptoms. Like there's 84% of women actually experience, a certain number of symptoms in all of this. And so to be able to see some of those things and watch what happens, I hope in 3 or 5 years, and we can say like, wow, look what we've done in this short amount of time. Because we don't have 20 years to wait for new research and tests. That's not fair to any of the women right now.
With the brain fog, you have your own story about how that impacted you. And I really feel that this story is an echo of why we end up feeling alone and why our confidence takes a nosedive. And my whole show is about confidence. And if you've built your self-esteem, your validation, everything up around what you do in life. And you were a news anchor, so you had been doing it for decades, right?
Yeah.
Worst example, if you don't mind sharing that so that other people actually also feel seen, understand, and not alone, and know that if you feel bad about something like this over brain fog, it is real and is not something to be dismissed.
Oh, it's so real. And it's not a little haha. You know, like I hear people every once in a while be like, oh, it's the brain fog. It's real. If you have real brain fog and real lack of retention when it comes to words and real a difficult time carrying on a conversation or remembering why you went into a room, it manifests in a lot of different ways. But for me, I anchor the news. I read a teleprompter. You know, I read the words in a teleprompter, and then you'd cross-talk. You'd sit and have a conversation, and I would notice. I would look at words. And this was happening a bit, and I'd be like, huh. I don't know it. It won't come out of my mouth, and I'd skip the word. So if you were listening closely enough, you'd be like, what did she just say? Oh, I must have misheard it. And I would just hope that I got away with it, right? And I would have a really difficult time. So I started feeling anxiety every time I would get up and do my job. Far from the only one. As I started to share the story, I had a doctor come to me and say, like, yeah, I forgot my medical license number, which you would recite like your social security number. And I just forgot it, and I thought I had dementia. And I said, really? You went to that? And she said, yeah, because that's something that I would know. Like, it didn't make sense. So it's real. It's not a thing that we're imagining. It's not, oh, because I'm getting older and I'm 45 or 50 anymore. And what happened to me that particular night that I was talking about when I left the news set is I was sitting there staring at a word. Again, it happened. And then all of a sudden this immense hot flash, which is not just a ha-ha. Like if you've had a real hot flash, it feels like it can kind of take you over. When your body heats up like that, your heart starts racing. So I had my heart racing out of control, a little breathless, hot flash, and I said out loud that if I fall over, somebody catch me. And the sports anchor said, I think you should get off the desk. Are you okay? And he led me to the ladies' room, and I went down to the floor and just tried to cool my whole body off. And I just remember thinking like, oh my gosh, this is the first time I've never completed my job. And I don't even feel comfortable getting back on there right now for a lack of confidence. And that's a real thing. And I kept feeling it over and over. And I've talked to so many women subsequent who have said, it's happened to me in a meeting. I left my job because of it. It's why we see a lot of women leave their careers.
One in five, right?
1 in 5, whether they're nurses, teachers, drivers, moms, whoever it is, feeling like I can't do what I have always done so well before.
That is so real. I had
real.
So much of the similar experience, and in real time, I knew it was a moment that I could let it be detrimental to my self-esteem and my confidence. And so I said, I won't. And in order for me not to allow it, I posted the video, and it was me. I was reading the teleprompter and that camera, and I was saying a stat, and it was like a pickup line.
Yeah.
So it was a pickup line to the camera, and the stat was on my teleprompter, and I kept saying dollars instead of percent.
Oh.
My brain literally was glitching.
Yeah.
What's that?
You said 45 that last time.
Did I just say 45? What the f?
But then here's this 48.
No. It is 48.
Yeah, okay.
What the f? All right, let's start again.
From the beginning?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, let's do it.
Why the f am I saying 45? That's so weird. Thank you for spotting that.
You did say, sorry, you said 20% instead of $20.
Jesus Christ. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate you, dude. What the f?
Just in that one part. Okay. Just that little brush. That's...
All right. Thank you, dude. Thank you. And so now I felt very insecure in my life. I've spent years and years building my confidence. I was petrified to be in front of the camera when I first got in front of it. I've been practicing for 5 years. I finally feel damn good about myself. And I'm glitching out in front of like my entire team. That stuff feels really freaking embarrassing.
Awful.
But I wouldn't allow it to, because I was just like, you know what? In this moment, I got two choices. I can feel the shame, and the shame's just gonna bury it deeper and deeper, and it just festers, and it gets freaking worse. It's like
worse
mold,
and worse and worse.
just gets worse.
It's true.
Right?
That's a great analogy. That's true.
Or I can speak about it, and I can let it go.
Yep.
And I'm saying, yeah, this is the reality. It doesn't mean I'm gonna give up. It doesn't mean that I'm useless. It doesn't mean that I'm bad. It means I'm struggling. That's real, but why would I hide my struggle?
did the reaction to that make you feel powerful? Like
Oh, it was
good and
amazing.
great,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it makes women feel good that they're like, oh my gosh, that's me too. Was it shocking to you, the reaction?
Yeah. No, I think because I'm very vulnerable on a lot of my socials, so I kind of expected it. I was waiting for a negative comment, and I was like, all right, come on, come at me, bro. Come at me, bro. I was like waiting for it.
Did you? No,
and I didn't
that's
have
so
any.
Nice.
Yeah,
That's
it was
so
really
nice.
nice.
I feel like that's what gives me energy and power every day. You know, like those, like I look and I'm aware, and when I see a woman like being vulnerable too and sharing, like that's everything. That's just everything to me. Yeah. It really is.
I think the more that we're able to do it, the more we feel encouraged to do it. We're like, oh my God, well, Tamsen did it, then I'll do it.
Yeah.
And then another memory I have is I had a guest on, I again don't actually remember who, in the interview. Now, I spent at least 8 to 10 to 12 hours on prepping for these episodes.
Wow.
I pour my heart and soul into them. I want to respect the guest. I want to come prepared. I've read your book. I've watched your shows, like everything. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel prepared. So imagine, I've done like 10 hours of researching this guest. They come on set. I completely forgot their name. Completely forgot. So the whole episode, I'm just calling them girl. Because I'm like, I don't bloody know. I can't remember. And they didn't have a book, so it's like my little cheat sheet. I can quickly look. Like, oh, Tamsen Fadal, phew. They didn't even have a book. So I was like, what am I going to do? And it wasn't even a menopause episode, because if it was, I could have been like, girl, I've forgotten your freaking name.
Right. You couldn't even use that.
So now I'm like, so in real time, I'm just like, just let it slide, Lisa, let it slide. But after that, I did feel a little bad. Like I was like, damn, I can't believe I even forgot that person's name.
But you didn't forget it. It happened. And I think that's the difference. It happened and it happens. And you know, we talked about Dr. Mosconi, and she has these charts of like the scan of the brain, which I've always been it was actually in the documentary we did. And
the M factor for anyone watching or listening.
Yes, the M factor.
So good.
Thank you. But she showed us these scans, and I was like, does it get better? Like, you know, because you're great, your numbers, like I can't remember the color. I think it's a green or whatever it is. And then it goes like this. And I was like, does it come back? And so most of the time it normalizes, you know, sometimes it kind of stays in the area. And obviously if you have a decline, then we're talking about something different. But many times it comes back. But I had years of feeling I couldn't memorize, I couldn't think. And I was like, you got this. And so I'd use little ways to kind of cheat around it. So I felt okay with it. And so I do think to, you know, anybody in your community that's at work or having those things, like, it's okay. Stop whatever you're doing. If you feel comfortable enough saying it, take a moment, step outside. It's why we also fight for policy in the workplace, so that workplaces are aware of these things and they're not penalizing women, and women don't feel like they have to leave their jobs, leave their careers, whatever it is, just because they feel like they can't do something, because they can.
Coming up.
I'm in menopause. Like, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe this was my fate.
We'll be right back. But first I want to talk about the fact that we women need to be getting a lot of protein throughout the day to help us stay healthy and freaking strong, especially as we get older. Which is why I have to tell you guys about this high protein snack that I'm absolutely obsessed with, called Paleo Valley beef sticks, because they literally have zero crap. And we all know that that's so hard to avoid when you're looking for quick, easy, delicious, high protein snacks. Before I discovered Paleo Valley, I am not joking, I would carry around a Ziploc bag full of bacon so that I had some protein to go to without it bothering my stomach, without me bloating, without me actually having issues, because it is gluten-free, soy and corn-free. And so with these beef sticks, I can now actually focus on being a badass at work, being a badass at home, with my family, at the gym when I'm working out, and with my homies. And I don't actually have to worry about what I'm gonna eat next. Click the link in my show notes and take advantage of this very special offer of 30 beef sticks for $30. But it's only through my link, so head to the show notes and click that link, my homie. Now, back to the episode. Yeah, keep going back to the identity thing.
Huge.
Because if you have validated your entire life over your identity, and then your identity gets shattered by brain fog or something like that, like you lose the confidence. And so things like, I have prided myself for years of being, I'll grit it out. I'm the person willing to work harder than anyone, go longer than anyone. Like I've built my identity and validation over it. And now I do a shoot, I'm wiped.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't think. Don't ask me to do any reviews. I can't do anything that requires a very big cognitive load.
Yeah.
And instead of getting embarrassed, my strategy was just tell people.
Yes.
Because the embarrassment is the worst thing.
Put it out there and give it. Yes, that's the worst thing. Because now you're trying to hide that, and now you're feeling less than, and that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't, and then it keeps growing like mold. It does keep doing that though when you try to hide that. And sadly, I think that that's what women did for a very, very long time, very, very long time, up until just recently. And I'm hopeful that we're going to find more women not doing that, and more women taking charge of everything. I mean, we say those things like be the the CEO of your health and your body and your life, and this is the time to do it. If you've never done something like that, this is the time. And there's a lot of places that don't have these candid conversations and can't have them. So I want us to be able to always reach those, because this is, globally women are struggling.
And I think that's definitely what you're doing. You're reaching so many different women. And one of the things in going into your world and watching your documentary, is really understanding, and knowledge is power. Like knowledge is power. And so I've got some stats actually that you talk about. So these blew my mind. 1 in 3 women in the USA have their uterus removed by the time that she's 60.
Yes. But it goes back to what you were talking about, which doctors not necessarily always know what's going on. And it makes me very sad. And that's where I think a lot of women were hearing coming back going, why did this happen? And was this necessary? And I think that's where, that's obviously this is always a bigger conversation than menopause. This is about women's healthcare. And so when we talk about that fight, it's about women's healthcare in general. But oftentimes we had doctors doing that, not realizing that might not have been necessary.
Right. And then knowing that the knock-on effect can actually put you into early menopause.
100%.
And then knowing what early menopause does to you, like it has this massive knock-on effect that we don't think about in our 30s.
It does. And we had a woman in the M Factor documentary, and I sat with her, and she was a stand-up comedian, and she had a hysterectomy, and she was like, I had no one told me. I was just figuring out who I was, and nobody told me what was going on. Like, how is that possible? And to have that on top of it, I mean, we have women that are, have dealt with breast cancer at a very early age. Early menopause always really rips out my heart, because I think that as much as we have peers to talk to, women that are in their early 30s, or in an age where it's not so normal, have nobody to talk to about it. They're watching their peers go around and have pretty normal, normal experiences, and they're dealing with what we're dealing with at this age.
And then seeing the depth of her sorrow when she's telling that story, she is crying. And so again, knowing it isn't just, a woman's getting a hysterectomy. It's this impacts everything.
It impacts everything. And that's the heartbreaking part, because I think when you're not told that, and then all of a sudden you realize this is what's going on, then what? And not feeling like you have a community to talk to about it.
Yeah. All right, next fact is the average woman will have symptoms anywhere from 4 to 7 years, but an African American woman will have symptoms for 10 years or more.
Yeah, and can often be more severe and more intense symptoms. And so, and that's, and that speaks to so many different things, but we need research on that, and why that happens, and where we go, and what the long-term health risks are, because that's the big problem. When you have a certain number of hot flashes every day or every week, that can be an indication of heart issues. So these symptoms that we're dealing with, whether you go into early menopause or where you are, can have long-term ramifications. And so that's why we want women to be able to know their symptoms, catch them, and figure out, who to talk to about them to see what kind of solutions, hormonal or non-hormonal.
Yeah, and also, as we women are talking and we're trying to relate to each other, oh my God, I feel you, I feel now seen. And then you have this whole other thing that I'm not even thinking about. So the other stat is Hispanic women go into menopause 2 years earlier than white women and experience hot flashes for even longer. So now thinking there's even a big difference between your ethnicity and then what you're going through. So now imagine us, like as white women are talking, and then you have an African American listening, and now she's like, well, hang on a minute, they just said 4 to 7 years, but I've been dealing with this for 10. Now I feel like I'm alone, right? Like there just is so much of a knock-on effect that we...
It is, and it's why we need to know all these things. We really, and I learned so much doing that documentary. It took us years to do that, but I learned so much. And every time we do another interview or hear something else, I'm like, okay, we need to go this direction. There was just so much to learn from that. And I think that it's why I get excited when women are talking about it all together. I think it's why I get excited that I see it in all different countries. And I'm hopeful that, we keep pushing that message out there. I mean, the average doctor gets, an hour a week, a month when we're talking about that, depending on what kind of practice they're going into. The fact that many Black women are not being treated, properly, get gaslit when they walk into a doctor's office, are not paid attention to or listened to. And so that was why in the documentary we really needed to talk about everything. This is not just, here's the symptoms, take your HRT. I mean, it really impacts so many different things in so many parts of life. And that's why we had that as part of the documentary, in a large part talking to a historian, talking to doctors, talking to Omi about advocacy and activism.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about the Black women back in the day when they were slaves,
yes,
that their hormones were different. Of course, I mean, the cortisol, I'm not a doctor, so I don't really know the exact
culturally,
hormone. Culturally. And then to think about how much that changed their body, their chemicals. You're now giving birth, so that child now has a different, I don't know if it would be molecular makeup. I don't know if that's actually the right phrase, but so they would have then different hormones, and then as you pass down generations, it's like, oh, well, of course, that actually makes complete difference. And I think that in talking about that, in sharing that type of information, again, I'm just going to go back to now women feel more seen and they understand their bodies. There's no judgment around it.
They do, and I think that's why I get excited when there's people that are out there advocating for all women, because everybody's different. Everybody's body's gonna be different. And I didn't even understand all of that. Like when we went into this, went to the book, went into the documentary and did the research, I was like, it is unbelievable. The fact that we don't have research to deal with most of these things, most of these symptoms. We have HRT that deals with hormone replacement therapy or hormone therapy with some of the symptoms, and certainly not all of them, and certainly not able to address the long-term effects of this, and especially when we're talking about women, whether it's Hispanic or African-American women.
I definitely want to talk about HRT, by the way, so we'll definitely get to that. I think that's super important. Okay, so, I mean, this is just an interesting stat. We will spend 30% of our lives in postmenopause.
I know, sorry. It's not me, it's the stat.
Like,
so if you hit menopause, average age is 51 in the US, so we'll just use the US, and you're gonna live to be, how many years? You're gonna live to be 80, 85 years old, 90, my dad's 85 right now. But when we talk about the fact that we're gonna live that long in this, because you go to back it up to 45 and then we'll just be on average, that's how long you're gonna be living in this area of postmenopause. So let's talk about what post is. Perimenopause is anything before 12 months without a period. Menopause is 12 months without a period. Postmenopause, and what I do just for easy sake is call anything else menopause, is everything else after that. So just because you've gone through hot flashes for these 10 years doesn't mean they stop. I've had women reach out to me and say, I'm 64, I'm still getting hot flashes and feel terrible. I'm still not sleeping and I still don't know what to do, and I'm working out, and the workout and how I'm eating has never changed. I'm doing it better than ever, and it's still not helping. So, we see women in these different stages still going through this because we all come into it at a different time.
And why do you think, though, it's important for us to know that?
Oh, gosh, I think it's important for a couple of different reasons. I think it's important to try to get started as early as possible in some of the lifestyle management of symptoms. We know what we should be doing. How they actually impact things is going to be really exciting to find out long term, because when we look at the long-term problems, we look at osteoporosis, which is a huge killer of women, as we know, when women fall, break a hip, cardiovascular, and then we also talk about brain health.
And I've heard you say most people once I get through it. And so it's kind of like almost setting yourself up for disaster. But if you just go, this is the rest of my life. I think that does, at least for me, mentally shift. It's like, oh,
now you know.
Yes. Also, if this is the rest of my life, then I'm going to adapt to my lifestyle.
Yes. It's not going to always be like this, though. The most intense symptoms are happening in the perimenopause part. But they just don't go away, when that happens, and depending on how you treat it and what you do. But I feel like you do. When I have the information, at least I know what I'm dealing with. Like when he told me, in menopause, any questions, that's what my doctor said to me in my patient portal when I did my blood work.
Literally, in menopause, any questions? ...
And I was like, I'm in menopause. Like, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe this was my fate. Little did I know, average age, totally normal, not weird at all. You know, it was just, it's unbelievable. But when we look at things like this and we look at the fact that if I had known that, it would have been like, oh, maybe that's why I'm not sleeping. Oh, maybe that's why I'm bleeding like crazy. And like, I would never have sat on this sofa before.
Oh, wow,
I'd have been like,
really?
oh, hey, Lisa. Yeah, of course, because I didn't know what was going to ever happen with my body. It was the craziest thing in the world. And so I think that those are things that take away confidence oftentimes with women, because there's so many odd things happening to us all at the same time.
God, it didn't. I actually, because of my health issues, I haven't had to period in like 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
So even you just sharing that moment, it wouldn't have dawned on me. And now I feel your anxiousness. Like I can feel how heartbreaking that would have been.
Yes, because you're, I'd go 2 months and I'd have my period, and then I wouldn't have one for 3 months. And then I'd go another month and it would be heavy and crazy. And women will say to me, they'll be like, I had a crime scene period, like really bad. But I would sit somewhere and yeah, there's a lot of anxiety that comes with all of that, for sure.
And now your lifestyle is being adapted because of it, I assume.
Oh, of course.
Can't wear light pants, can't sit on light sofas.
I'd be like, Lisa, can I sit on this pillow?
Get you a red pillow. Okay, so women in menopause make up half the population, but menopause research only gets less than 1% of healthcare funds.
Isn't that crazy? You can't even find it. That's what Dr. Sharon Malone always says. You can't even find it. So it's such a small amount of money that goes toward that. I mean, you know, there's a lot of different women's issues that, of course, we want money to go to, so we don't want to take away from that, but we have to put money into this. We have to. There's no other way. We have to do big scale studies. We need to look and luckily, Dr. Mosconi, who we were talking about earlier, the neuroscientist, she's doing this big $50 million study with a couple of different organizations to look into dementia and Alzheimer's and how it relates to menopause. And it's amazing, but we're in 2025. Like, we need more and fast. And so when I look at those numbers, I really realize where we are.
But I mean, hey, don't worry. All of our money has gone to making sure that men can still have erections in their older age. That's the important thing, right?
For that. Well, they have like 20 pills for that. I think we have like 2.
But isn't it
One is a
crazy?
little pink pill.
Let's actually think about it though.
Can you?
You can't just fix the older men and not fix the older women, because now it's like, yeah,
But we have.
That's what we've done. They can have an erection, but the woman's too dry for the erection to do anything.
The woman's hiding in the bathroom, like, you know, trying to deal with her patch. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Seriously.
It is. But that is the reason why I always advocate for vaginal estrogen too, because every woman can do that. Like, that is, you know, doctors say that's mostly safe for every woman, and so that's some good news.
Can you still have sex when you're using vaginal estrogen?
Oh yeah, of course.
The estrogen doesn't go on the guy's penis? Sorry, maybe I'm getting too graphic, but like, this is just...
No, I mean, no.
I'm just curious. Sorry, I'm just like, what have you?
No, you don't have to worry about him being filled with
Not
estrogen.
that I'm asking for a friend, people. I'm asking for a friend.
A viewer wrote this in.
Yes. Someone wrote a comment and wanted to know. Oh dear. Okay. Sorry, derailed a little there. We are allocated $5 billion for women's health, but only $15 million is actually dedicated to menopause. And I did the math, and that's 0.3% of the budget.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yay.
Which is why I think people like yourself, who's just shouting this from the rooftops, telling women what to expect, how to handle it, like emotionally first, and then figuring out, but like, this is crazy.
Well, that's the problem. You know, we had this study that was 20 years ago, 2002, which was a study that scared a lot of women when it came to estrogen. We don't have time to do another study for 20 years. We have women, we have 1 billion women that are dealing with this. We need access. We need education first about it, awareness, education. We need medical school. I mean, it's almost like which one do we do first, right? There's so many different tent poles to all of this. So I feel like, okay, what's my ability to do is to like just help as many women as possible. Just start with the conversation. Just start the conversation. And I feel like that helps women feel so much better inside and so much more clear. So even if you're not physically feeling better, you're mentally saying like, this is what I'm dealing with. I'm not going crazy. I'm not alone. This is something normal. And maybe I need to tell my daughter and my sister and my mom and any other woman in my life that it might affect, and my partner.
I feel like you're the menopause lighthouse.
Oh, I like that.
You know what I mean? Like, people,
like that.
yeah, like they come back home. If you ever get lost, they come back home to home base.
you.
And you make people feel safe. That's what a lighthouse is, right?
Thank
It brings
you.
people home.
Thank you.
And so in your book, though, you say there are 6 non-negotiable wellness practices that people can do.
Okay.
So number 1, the dry brushing. What the hell is dry brushing?
Have you never done dry brushing before? There was back and forth reviews of whether it was good or not, but my skin totally changed.
Tell
during
me about
menopause. And it's like, it's a flaky. Actually, I need to do it now. It feels like different. It's just different skin. And I used to be like, oh, I'll just put moisturizer everywhere. Now
that's
it
what I
used to take me 5 minutes to get ready for bed. It's like 25 minutes now. I'm moisturizing in, out, up, down, up, all over, everywhere. Do you? I mean, it's everywhere. I feel like
from head to toe when I take
everywhere and in between. And so dry brushing is just the brush to flake off the dead skin and to open up the circulation a little bit, and then I jump in the shower.
Interesting. So you do it before you get in the shower?
I do it before I get in the shower. Yeah, absolutely.
So the dry brushing though works because we already have dry skin.
We already have the dry skin
because of the
but I'm
menopause.
pulling off of all the flakes, the flakiness of it. It helps with the circulation of your skin too.
So it does.
Yeah,
Wow, amazing. Okay, so dry brushing number 1. You get like a normal, what type of brush?
Oh, you have never said. I'm sending you a kit.
I'm 40, see?
I'm sending you a
See the
kit.
lighthouse. You're my lighthouse girl.
I'm sending you a kit. What else do we need?
All right. So in fact, that should be your next project. The menopause kit. I like it. Why not? All right, so it's going to have a dry brush in there.
Okay.
It's
What
going to
else do
have,
you
so
want?
it says HTP, magnesium, and D supplements.
Oh, yeah, of course. Right now, I love magnesium because that's helping me with the sleep portion.
Yes,
of it.
I've just started it before
Did you?
bed. Yeah.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. So I think that at first I was like, if I need it, if I get it, it's fine. If not, whatever. That's a huge one for me. And I've actually just switched over to vitamin D K2. I have no vitamin D in my body. I have no idea what's going on. I've had it compounded. I've had everything. So those are my 2 biggies right now. But those are supplements that I feel like are easy for me to do, and I do them in a powder form. And so it's just easy for me to take and just feels okay where I'm not overdoing it, where I take 50 in the morning, 2 in the night. I can't do too much or I won't do anything.
That's true. That's very
right.
true. All right, so magnesium and vitamin D it is.
Vitamin D K2.
Vitamin D K2. Oh, what's the difference?
That's to help your body process it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so that's going to be in your box,
and it's the same
menopause
thing.
box.
It's not 2 different ones. Yeah, that'll be in your box.
Okay, so it's going to be in the box. Tongue scraping.
Oh, have you not done that?
No, but you better believe it.
What?
But you better believe it.
Oh yeah, there's a couple of different types. There's a plastic one, but I have a metal one. It's
That's
not
what I've heard.
very
Metal's
pretty.
supposed to be
yeah,
better.
it's great for your breath. Oh my gosh, what? Yeah, you just scrape. It's like it looks like this.
I've seen them. I just haven't never used one.
That's
all right,
it.
so what's that doing?
I mean, for me, it's for breath in the morning. That's what it does. It just gets rid of all the bacteria and the junk. Yeah, I feel like my body has changed. My body odor has changed. Yeah, 100%.
My body odor has changed. Actually, you're right.
Yeah, my breath and my arms.
I haven't necessarily noticed my breath, but
yeah,
okay, so tongue scraper's
Okay,
going in the
that's
box
in your
as
kit
well.
next.
I love this next one.
I'm
So we
literally writing these
literally
down
went
in my
from
head.
dry brushing, vitamins, tongue scraper,
What else do we need in this kit?
crossword puzzles.
Oh yes, come on, that's so good.
I
It's so
love it.
funny.
It's in
Somebody
there.
sent that. Maria Shriver sent me like 3 puzzles for the brain because she's all about brain health.
yes.
And I was like, this is so great, and so I added that. But our brain with brain fog and brain health, it's huge to have that like focus and concentration. And so I actually, when I was doing some research for this, because in the doc we couldn't, like there was just not enough room because I had that hour. I said, what is good for that? Like, are puzzles good for it? Are crossword puzzles good for it? And crossword puzzles is that a lot of the research showed. And so crossword puzzles, I do 2. I do the little short one in the New York Times. It's like only 4 letters for each thing because it makes me feel successful. And then because it's like it's like
You don't want to be defeated.
Simple. I don't want to go out of the gate in the Sunday Times. Yeah.
And that's to keep your brain
It keeps
active.
my brain active, and it also helps. It made me feel more confident too about words and about recollection. I'm reading more. I'm doing anything I can to play with my brain health a little bit more.
I love that.
Yeah, I think it's a big deal.
I interviewed Dr. Amen, and he was the one that said ping pong is the best game.
Oh, ping pong. That makes sense.
Because it's coordination. So
Yeah.
it's the coordination between your
Yep.
brain registering and then your body.
Brilliant.
And now the in thing is pickleball.
I
so
know. I was just going to ask if pickleball was one too. Now
it
I bet
was.
I'm sure it is.
So I've just joined a girls' pickleball group.
Oh, that's so
I
cool.
did. I haven't started it yet. It starts next
That's
week.
so cool.
But
I
yeah.
love that. I love that.
Because I
wanna
figured
hear how it
also
goes.
it was the brain
Yep.
and going back to what we said earlier about loneliness, it's my time with my girlfriends.
Perfect.
And so
It's
I thought
perfect.
the two, and it's outside, so it's out in nature.
It's
So
all
it's like,
of it.
it's all these things.
I got to tell you, community, and we can touch on it, but community is a huge part of this now. Like I understood the words community. I understood like, oh, it's important to have friends. Community is, the definition of it's changed for me, and how it impacted me has just made all the difference in the world. It's pretty staggering.
Did you watch the Blue Zone docuseries on Netflix?
Yes, of course.
That's what they said. Literally, it was communities.
It's like this back to basics. It's communities. Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
It means a lot.
Back to basics, like you said. Okay, so we're going to put some crossword puzzles in there, but some really easy ones.
Easy
No
ones.
maximum.
You can do two, but you got to do these
All right,
first.
maximum like 4 or 5 letters. And then so you got number 5.
I shouldn't have confessed that.
No, I love it.
That's true.
It's like, because you've got to. It's
I
like,
have to have a win.
number 5, 5,000. See, glitch. 7,000 steps a day.
Yep. The movement is huge. The movement is huge, obviously, for fitness and for cardio. It's also huge for your brain, and it's really made a difference to me. So I get up in the morning. First thing, I get outside, get a coffee, and I walk. I walk to Central Park when I'm in New York. When I'm in Santa Monica, I walk by the water. And so it does a couple of things for me. It's obviously important for movement with regard to, we've talked about weight and women feeling frustrated about that during this time, but also in types of the flexibility and balance and all the things that come during this, because I think it's a really big deal. And so I try to do 10,000, but 7,000, if I can get that done, I'm a happy person.
I just heard recently as well, actually, with the balance thing, that one of the worst things we do is we sit down and put our shoes on. That we should actually always
What do
try.
Put them on. What do you do?
Stand up and put your shoe on.
What do you mean? Like,
so, I'm just going to do a little demo here. So, this is what I literally just heard this like 5 days ago.
Okay.
So bear with me, I'm not very good
I
at
should
this.
have added it to my book.
But you don't, so normally we do this, right?
Yeah, for balance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really?
You need to focus.
Okay, sorry, I won't talk. That was so good. That was so good. I love it. That's great. That makes total sense. Because I had the balance, like the sit down, stand up test, and the balance on one leg. That's great.
Right, because we put our shoes on every day.
Gosh, I thought you were going to say like squat down and like, I was like, yeah, okay, I do that too.
I probably did it terribly with my wobbling.
No, it's
but
great.
you
I love this focus. I was trying to talk to you and you're like, shut up.
I was like, I can't do 2 things at once, girl. 10 years ago, I could have.
That's really good. Okay, I'm going to start doing that.
So, and then actually, so secondly, why walking and not like sweating it out on the freaking treadmill or on an elliptical?
I know. Well, I mean, the walking is in zone 2. Walking is what I really try to do, is like speeding it up just a little bit. But I have a part in there about like, you don't have to be so crazy with cardio just because of the intensity of cardio on your body. Strength training is very important during this time, just in terms of protecting your bones and building muscle and the protein, obviously, you know that. And the cardio just not being so intense with it all, just because of how it spikes everything.
Yeah, I still make sure that I deadlift, that I squat, because the back and the strength of that and the hips.
I know, everything.
Okay, and then number 6, you talk about breath work.
Yeah, of course. So I went back to school at IIN. It's like the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, and breath work was everything that they talked about, of just doing that throughout the day, and however you want to do it. If you want to do the box breathing, or you want to just pay attention to your breath, because I think that we go through our life right now fast, very fast, and I think that this is that time that we have to take that pause, not even to be pun intended, but to really take that pause for a little bit and focus. Otherwise, we're just sitting here breathing up and down like this.
And because menopause happens later in our life, and so much of our life has been somewhat molded and crafted into what serves that part of our life, right? So you even said, the reason why it's difficult is kids maybe leave. So now think about, you spend your whole life looking after the kids, looking after the family, looking after the husband. You don't do that pause, that like you just go. It becomes a habit. And so you take that
It's
into,
all you know.
Yeah.
It's all you know.
So I think really finding the thing that fits you in your space to be able to relax.
Yeah. I like that you're doing pickleball.
We should do some sort of like menopause pickleball tournament.
I will totally do that with you. I would love that.
That would be so fun.
That'd be awesome.
Oh my God. Just put us together and we've already come up with ideas. Okay, so having gone through that, you also talk about there are 5 things that you wish you knew.
Oh gosh, I know.
Earlier. So if there's someone listening, no matter what age they're at, let's say they're even like mid-30s or early 30s,
Yeah.
all the way up to post-menopause. What are the things that you just wish you knew that we can learn before we get there, or that could help us navigate this?
I wish I had known that I didn't have to go through it by myself. And that wasn't just like this isolating thing where I thought I couldn't talk about it, didn't talk about it with girlfriends. A friend of mine said, I have a text message. It's like the hottie hotties. And that's like 5 of their friends that are all in perimenopause, menopause. And they just talk to each other and complain about their symptoms or share. And like, I kind of think that's cool. I don't know that everyone's going to have a text message like that. But how different is that than what we've seen before? And so I think that's really cool. How long?
That's your next business, by the way. So you're going to do an app that basically now women find their tribes within the app, and now they've
like
got the
that.
text chain.
I like that. I need all your ideas.
Oh, and I just keep
I'm
giving you
my
business
toolkit.
ideas.
I'm giving you my
There
toolkit.
you go. That's your other business.
Symptoms.
I'll promote it.
I love it. I think it'd be fun too. Symptoms and how long they last when we're talking about the perimenopause, when you hit menopause and beyond. And I think that the important part of that is not just assuming you're going to get through it. My best friend, and we laugh about it now, but I said to her when I was first starting this, I said, I've heard that I'm in like menopause. Like, I can't believe it. And she goes, I breezed through menopause. And I go, you did? And then I felt like, oh, what's wrong with me? And now she's like got all these different symptoms. She's dealing with hair, she's dealing with, and I went, she goes, I just want to apologize for saying that to you 5 years ago. And I was like, I'm glad you're apologizing for that, because you're just aware of what's happening. So I think how long the symptoms can last, because they can last for a long time, or they might not. But at least you know exactly what it is you're dealing with. Solutions to the symptoms, and I know we're going to talk about that, but there's non-hormonal and there's hormonal and lifestyle changes, and I think that that's a really big deal. And the fact that, we talked about it before, but menopause doesn't mean an end. It's not an end, it's just a transition. And if we can get that, through our heads, you know what I mean, and really understand it, because I think for a long time it was just this thing women dreaded, and it meant old, and it meant like beyond. When you go to different cultures, that age is revered, and it means wisdom, and this person's been through these life experiences. So I hope that people realize that. And I think if I had to add a sixth one, just for a bonus round of it, I would just say that there are real gifts through all of that. And I don't think that that's initially what we talk about, and I hope we start doing that.
And now transition into what can we do about it. So knowing thyself. So I don't know if you would agree, but go get your hormones checked should be like almost like step number 1 if you can. Like know where you are. And in me having done that, I'm checking everything, and I'm trying to heal like my gut, my liver, I've got all these conditions. So now I'm very much focused on my hormone levels. And so I went and got them tested. And I sat with my doctor, and I've never publicly shared this. This is actually the first time. This just happened maybe 2 weeks ago. It's maybe hard to say. So she looked at my levels and she goes, Lisa, have you ever thought about committing suicide? And I was like, no. And she's like, you have no hormones. And I was like, what do you mean? She goes, you basically have no hormones. She's like, I don't know how you haven't committed suicide. Now, I haven't. Like, that has never been a thought of mine, so I just want to make sure that that's very clear. But she was like, I have really been struggling. I've been struggling with my sleep. I've been struggling with my moods. I've been struggling with my gut issues. When I travel, it wears on me, like all of these things. But I just I'm getting older. I'm getting older. And when she was like, Lisa, you have no hormones.
Oh my gosh.
It was like such a weird slap in the face, but kind of like a good wake-up call.
Right, like things were starting to make sense. But
Yes.
but the shock of that statement and question and realization.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, that was
with.
quite harsh. And she's like, yeah, I mean to be, because that's how serious that this could have gotten without you even realizing it. So that's why I wanted to say, like, you've got to get your levels checked, because I'm the person, I'm biohack. I've got literally right now, I've got a continuous glucose monitor, I've got an oral ring, and to think that I had no idea that my hormones were that bad.
Unbelievable.
So
that's unbelievable. I'm glad. Thank you for sharing that, first of all, because that's, I know, not an easy experience or story to share. But I think it speaks to so many women of not understanding what's going on, and no one telling us to try to understand, And so that's where I think that we have to take that. We have to know our information. We have to take that time for ourselves. Like, what if you were going around, running around, I don't have time to do that right now. I'll get to it. Like that. we have to get to it now. I mean, that this is our, someday. It's not going to be someday. It needs to be right now.
Yeah.
This is our someday. And I'm so glad that you're talking to somebody and getting help with that too, because that's a big deal. When you're not dealing with estrogen, I mean, there's so many hormones, but estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, I can't even imagine what else is on that list if they're saying something that's severe to you.
Yeah. And so thank you for saying that. I feel seen by you, so thank you. But a big part of it was I thought I was doing all the things. And that's why, I monitor my sleep. I eat very healthy. I don't calorie count anymore. I lift weights. Like, I very much focus on my health. And so when she told me that, I was like, wow, there was this massive piece of the puzzle that I was just missing. And it explains why my Oura ring will tell me, Lisa, you're doing great. You got 93% score out of 100. Like, you're like acing your sleep. And I'm waking up exhausted.
Oh
I'm waking up exhausted.
Of course.
And my husband doesn't mean to at all. But he'll see me in bed for like 9 hours and I'll wake up and he was like, oh, how did you sleep? I'm like, I'm exhausted. And he's like, but you got 9 hours. He doesn't mean to, but I feel so judged.
Well, of course, but in your own mind too, because you're like, oh, if I get this, I should be fine. What is wrong with me? And you don't recognize yourself, and that's the problem. And I'm glad that you said that this is where women have to like take charge of that part and go see what's going on with them. And in perimenopause, hormones can be all over the place too. So to be aware of that, you could go one day and it's here, and another day it's somewhere else. But for having no hormones, you have to take charge of that and know exactly what's happening. Yeah. I'm so glad you're dealing with somebody that's talking about that and comfortable talking about that too, because that's the next part of it, is that if you're going to a doctor and a doctor is saying like, you know what, all women go through this, you'll be fine, and didn't check and didn't inquire and didn't ask more questions, where could you be as a result of that?
Mm-hmm. I think being able to have people around you that you trust, that you can ask. So this doctor came very highly recommended. Good. And so I don't know if you ever done like a credible like list of doctors that people can go and see.
We have one on the website. So Menopause Society has it by zip code. So they have certified menopause practitioners, and those are not everywhere.
And that's like menopausesociety.com?
Menopausesociety.org. TheMenopauseSociety.org. And I'll make sure you have all of those things. And there's actually resources in here, because that's the number one question we would get after women would watch a film is like, where do I go now? And then what I did on the website is, I asked practitioners to write in, tell me what they did, where they were doing it, and having women cross-reference that. And then the third area is telehealth, because I don't want women to be like, okay, it's great, I got an appointment with a doctor and I can't see them for 8 weeks, because we don't have 8 weeks. And so telehealth has also been a big game changer in all of that. MIDI Health is great. Maven, Alloy, there's some really good with certified menopause practitioners that know to talk about it right away, willing to talk about it right away, will talk about the options. And so those are three of the big references that I think are important, especially if you're suffering right now. Like a friend of mine, his wife was really suffering. He's like, she can't wait to go see her doctor. Doctor appointment is like in 2 months. She can't wait. And so she did a telehealth. And just after 30 minutes with that appointment, she felt different, because somebody heard her and somebody said, hey, this is what you're going through. Mm-hmm. This is what's happening.
And then knowing that, so someone really identifying, hearing you, and then being able to help you come up with a plan. And that really was the next step for me, because I was actually, I don't want to say against HRT, hormone replacement therapy, in case people don't know. It wasn't that I was against it, but I'm always the person that like, let me see if I can do it myself. Let me try and white knuckle it. Yeah, I'll fix it. Yeah,
I got this.
Yeah,
I don't need your little thing. Yeah, no, I get it.
But plus also the idea of like hormones, but like almost like, but my body should be able to do it. Mm-hmm. Should. Yeah. So I, for the first time, literally 3 days ago, put on my very first estrogen patch. I know now I'm just like.
Do you want to show me?
I do. It's like this little thing, you can't even see it.
I'll show you my patch.
We literally feel like we are.
Where is it? There we go.
Yay,
there we
mine.
Go. Oh, I like it. Now, my God, mine's bigger.
Yours bigger.
Mine's bigger because I needed more.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah, you're starting at the regular one.
So yeah, I feel like, but like really, I feel like this is like almost like a badge of honor now. And so your third business that you're going to do after this interview, by the way, we all should have badges.
We should. They should be decorated too.
They should be decorated. Wonder Woman.
I love that.
Oh my God. Okay, you got to put Wonder Woman.
all right.
On there. When
I'll
you
do
start
that
doing those
business
ones,
with you.
yeah. Like I really, once I put it on, there
Yeah.
was this weird mental transition for me to feel so empowered to be like,
You took action.
yeah, I'm the type, but even though I took action before, it's like I'm the type of person, and that's how I love to think, I'm the type of person that can actually look at my lifestyle, go, identify what I'm doing that isn't serving me,
Yeah.
and be able to be brave enough to make a change.
That's great. That's great.
And so talk to me about HRT. There's still quite debate about whether, it's almost like you've got these two people that are just like, HRT is amazing, that's the first thing you should do. And other people are like, don't touch it. There were studies before that said it actually caused cancer. So talk to me about the debate and then how we can think through it for ourselves.
Yeah, and I want to say this. I was just like you. My mother died of breast cancer, so I was like, oh my gosh. And she was always very homeopathic. Didn't want to do chemo early on. So I got a lot of that from her. And so when I got those 4 messages in my 4 words in my patient portal, I was like, oh, menopause, what? And so I wound up going to a doctor, and she said, look, she goes, I can't wait to go on hormone therapy. So anyway, so I knew in my mind somewhere that estrogen was bad because my mother had an estrogen-based breast cancer. So when a doctor said to me, we're going to give you an estrogen patch, which was a smaller patch at the time, and progesterone, you'll sleep better, you'll do all this, I was like, okay, but I don't know if I should do it or not. And she said, well, we calculated all your risk factors. She took out a calculator and she assessed my risk of it being an option for me. And I was like, you have a calculator and I'm scared. And so I brought it home and I never used it. But my symptoms were debilitating in a lot of different ways for me. And I went back to a doctor that finally really explained what was going on. She was like, you're suffering. Like, you shouldn't be suffering like this. And there is a solution for it. And let me explain exactly what's going on. And by that time, I had done a lot of the research. There was a study 20 years ago called the Women's Health Initiative that the film talks a lot about. They got a lot of women very confused when the results were announced. Women were flushing their hormones down the toilet because they were scared that hormones caused breast cancer. Now that study has, they've looked at the data and they realized that's not what the data supports as a result. 2024 came out, talked about the data again, looked at the data again. The people that were part of the study were different ages. The type of hormones were used were different hormones than what we're seeing today. So as a result of that, though, there's still a very big fear about hormones. And I always encourage people to do their own research. But for a majority of women, unless you have had stroke, unless you have had a breast cancer yourself, hormones will be a good solution for them to help with some of the symptoms of menopause and in the perimenopause area. So those are estrogen and progesterone. I have added on testosterone when the low libido was really a thing for me.
I am taking progesterone in a couple of weeks. So they
Yes.
wanted to do it in stages
Yeah.
with me to see how my body would react.
Good.
So I'm then
Good.
going to take
especially if
tablet-
you have nothing in your body, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so
So I do my patch twice a week. Probably yours is too, right? And I just had mine hormone panel done to just see where I am. So my estrogen levels are good, and so I feel like I'm in good shape there.
that's cool.
Yeah,
You also actually give
finally.
a list though that even if you're not taking the hormones,
Yeah.
because again, I want to make sure that we cover both because I
Yes,
think it's
we have to
important.
talk about non-hormonal.
So go ask your doctor, get your levels tested, do the research, don't be afraid. But let's say that people are just like, look, I don't have the time, money.
Yep.
Make the freaking time. Make
Yeah,
the
make the
freaking time.
Make the time.
So important. But you actually have tips on what to do when you have hot flushes. So if you don't mind sharing a couple of those with me, they were so good.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the non-hormonal too, because I know
Yes.
that's really important to you, and it's important to me too. Because if my mother were still here, she would probably not be a candidate for hormone therapy because of breast cancer. So a couple of different things. I mean, I wear like layers all the time. I'm oftentimes sleeveless. Like these are sleeves for me.
Dude,
really.
I'm like sweating right now.
You are?
I've got Eric, God
Your
bless
patch
Eric.
is going to kick in soon.
He even said though, he's like, I put the AC high. I was like, thank you.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's a big one. I'm always fighting with my husband.
Oh, he's like,
so
two
you're gonna have to
menopausal
tell-
women. I got to put the AC
You're gonna
high in the
have- you're
studio.
gonna have- yeah, right? That's exactly
Thank
right.
you, Eric.
I know. It's always freezing wherever I am. My husband's like, are you kidding me with 65 degrees? And I was like, I'm not kidding you. So I always cool my body down if I'm like super like worried about it. I'll have a mug like this and I'll just sit it someplace and put my wrist against it to cool my body
that's
down.
such
And
a
that's
good
like a little
idea.
a pressure point or a
Wrist.
point to do that. Yeah. It helps me quite often. I have neck fan. Oh, that's got to be in your toolkit.
Ooh, that's so fun.
You have such a kit coming to you.
I know.
I'm excited about that. And then, I look at the kind of clothes that I'm wearing to make them a little bit cooler and easier, just like a lighter kind of clothing. And
Isn't there a
with hot
menopause
flashes.
brand though that you said actually that like
There is. It's called Become Clothing. Yeah, Become Clothing. And it's like it's so nice. And then caffeine and alcohol are two things that really trigger hot flashes and spicy foods. So just to be aware of those things. I know.
Interesting.
I know.
And is it hot coffee or the caffeine?
Caffeine.
Oh, damn it.
Yeah.
Here I am going, I'll just take my cold brew.
I was not going to. I know. No. But I do it anyway. I mean, look, I can't be perfect. I'm not perfect. I want to be as good as I can be for my body, but there's no way I'm just going to walk around my life miserable. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So.
What about your biohacking? So you wear an Oura ring. I've got my Oura ring here.
Sometimes I feel like it hates me and it's saying like you're not very good at sleeping and you had this night, but it does make me feel aware. Like if I look down, I'm aware of it. Like, oh, this is you caring about yourself a little bit. So I like that part.
That's a nice
I like
perspective.
That part. Yeah.
I love it, but I have to take it with a pinch of salt because again, the reason why I want to talk about this is I really want people to have the tools. Like, what are the things that I can use? And obviously, we're sitting here with Oura rings, so I want to talk about that. But it is very judgy. It's very judgy.
It is judgy. It is. Well, it's judgy also. Like, I didn't realize it looked at stress so well. Like, I don't know how it knew that. Was my heart racing or whatever it was? But it said to me like 3 days in a row last week, because, I've been like working on the book and doing all these different things. And it was like, you're really stressed. I can't remember the words. But it was like, you're really stressed out. And I didn't get a crown that day. Like, it has the crown. I'm like, where's my crown? And I didn't get a crown. So so I have to take it with a grain of salt. So I don't look at it every day. Yeah. Sometimes I'm like, no. And then I was looking at the bed that has like all the different things on it. And I'm like,
sleep.
Yeah. Do you love it?
Game changer. It is. Oh, I love it.
But so does it judge you or no?
No.
Okay. Well, maybe that's
the thing that I put on the mattress, is that what you mean?
Okay.
Is that what you mean?
No, I don't know. It was like a mattress that helps with cooling and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Okay.
It doesn't really judge you because you just set the mattress. So like if you've got night sweats, you can literally, it's on an app, it's amazing. And it does separate sides. So my husband can have his temperature, whatever, and then
my husband runs hot.
Oh, it's so good, yeah.
That's great.
So you can put in what temperature you want to keep your body. Now, of course, it is exterior, it's not interior of your body. But it's like if you want to stay at 65, and your husband wants to be at 75, it will cool your bed and take your body temperature in the middle of the night, and it adapts to it.
I love that.
Oh, it's so good.
I love that.
Yeah, it's really good.
Because I'm the foot in, foot out, foot in. Do you do that with your comforter? Yeah. I'm like, I'm just gonna take it out for a minute, cool it off, and then put it back in, then cool it off and put it back in. Yeah. Then I get chilly, and like my leg gets like night sweaty, and then I put it back in. Yeah. So
do you share blankets with your husband?
We have the same comforter. It's so annoying.
That's another one.
I know, it's so annoying.
It's a relationship game changer when you have your own blankets.
Yes, I need to do that. We have one, like this beautiful blanket at the bottom that's really supposed to be for decoration. By the end of the night, he has it all on him, and I have all my stuff shoved over to his side. It looks like there's been a huge fight in the bed in the middle of the night. I don't know what time it happens, but it always looks like that in the morning.
Yeah. No, literally change your bed sheets. That way you can have really thin, he can have really thick.
I like that.
It will,
I like that.
Yeah.
All right.
And then the Oura ring,
You've got all the tips. I love it.
Oh yeah, well,
I love it.
I've just been experimenting. I'm really, really trying to like make sure.
But it's great. You're so ready. Like you're never going to get in menopause any questions in your patient portal because you're going to be like, hey, I think I'm in menopause. Really? I mean, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, even with menopause and perimenopause, you've said it earlier and many times. It's like we should be so lucky to get to menopause.
I agree.
And when I see like the worst of the worst scenarios where people die early from either cancer, car accident, I mean, you name it, I go, I am so damn glad that I'm around to be able to have the experience of menopause. So I could really get sad and heartbroken over the horrors that come with it. Yeah. Or I can freaking enjoy the ride and I can uplift people. I can joke about it. It's still real crap. Like I'm not pretending it's
real.
not.
It's totally real. But you're taking charge of your health, and that taking charge of your life is what it's all about, and that's really encouraging to women to hear. You know, women need to hear other women doing that, so then they want to do that, and then they know it's possible.
Mm-hmm. Actually, one random question. This is actually a side note, but I'm fascinated. So you call yourself, obviously, people call you the midlife expert.
Oh, yeah, I don't.
When a man goes through a midlife, crisis,
Yeah.
they get the Lamborghinis.
Yeah.
They get
I
the
know.
hot younger chick.
I know.
When we go through midlife crisis, it's like, what's happening to us?
Yeah.
Is that
we get
just,
a patch.
Yeah, we get a patch. Yes. Is that just like the reactions of the differences in our hormones, do you think, in our bodies? Or do you think it is literally how the world and society paints men versus women?
Oh, I totally think it's how society paints men versus women. I do. And I'm hoping we're rewriting that. I hope every single day, every voice, every woman, every conversation rewrites that. Because I think that that's why we've been so quiet about this. How is it that half of the population is going to go through this and we're just talking about it and we've whispered about it and we use the word taboo? I mean, how are we using the word taboo around something that every woman is going to go through? So I think we've got to get to that place, and I hope we are. I think it's going to take a long time. I think that, I spent a long time in the media. I think the media is to blame for a lot of it. I think we look at commercials on television and it's all youth, and not that I didn't love youth, and I love learning and I love intergenerational, but there are some incredible people that are in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s and beyond doing incredible things, and we have to acknowledge that.
Oh yeah. Tamsen, where can people find you, your book, your documentary, and then I'm sure you're doing 1,000 things. But
on the pickleball court with you.
Yeah.
Tamsen Fadal on social media, and the book is How to Menopause, howtomenopause.com.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Guys, this topic is so important for every single woman out there, no matter what age. Either you're about to have it, or you're in it, or you're just past it. To feel seen, to feel heard by other women can be the most beautiful thing that can happen at any age, guys. So honestly, go check out her book, learn about it, spread the word, tell your homies, tell your mum, tell your sister, tell your daughters, spread the word so that we can start to get to a stage where the word taboo does never go in the same sentence as menopause again. Guys, thank you for joining. If you're not subscribed, click that subscribe button down there. And until next time, be the hero of your own life. Peace. If you want to learn why on earth you're gaining the weight, aging rapidly, and you want to finally figure out how to fix your hormones, then click here right now.
The most likely time for a woman to commit suicide is between the ages of 45 and 55. We see a quadrupling of depression rates through